So I guess I'll introduce us. Um,
Okay.
I'm Barry Reynolds, and who are you, sir?
I am Daniel Solis.
Okay,
Uh, should I say anything more?
it's up to you. Yeah.
I am Daniel Solis. I'm a game designer. Hi.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself there, Daniel?
Sure. I'm Daniel Solis. I am an art director by day for the tabletop games industry. That means I do graphic design and hire artists for tabletop games, board games, role-playing games, all sorts of stuff. But my big passion is designing games. So actually making card games, generally speaking. Usually things that are pretty casual, very approachable, but still have a little bit of emergent strategy to them, but are very approachable. That's my bag.
That's your bag. Yeah, I actually follow you on Twitter.
Oh,
And
I'm so sorry.
you just,
I tweet a lot.
oh, sorry about that. The other channels are coming through there. There we go. Yeah, you just pump out ideas left and right, like all the time. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, ideas are nothing. It's get it putting the work to actually make them something is the real challenge.
So, well, how do you come up with the game designs?
I wish I knew. I don't know. It's just something that kind of happens. Honestly, it's a lot of it's just kind of force of habit. If you keep doing it long enough, you start doing. I hear like musicians will come up with little tunes in their head a lot of times, and they'll just write them down and kind of noodle them on a guitar or something. And I'm sure mathematicians are always thinking of some math problem in the back of their head. And with me, it's just always like some game mechanic or some theme or sometimes both, where like a theme will have an interesting idea behind it, so that I can probably think of a good mechanic for it. And I don't want to like just jealously guard all that stuff. I want to put it out there and share with people, and it helps to get feedback on that right from the start, mainly so that I know, hey, has someone done this idea? Usually they have, and then I can look at that game and see what I could do that maybe is a little bit different, and maybe something that I could work on in the future. But that's just how I work, and it's just kind of comes naturally. Yeah.
So when you're coming up with a game, do you focus on theme first and then the mechanics, or is it more mechanic and then the theme?
You get a lot of different answers from a lot of designers. A lot of people they like the theme, they like the story, they like being able to say that you are this person in this place at this time doing this thing for this reason, and presenting that and getting that emotional investment into it. And other designers they don't care. They look at it as more of an abstract puzzle that they're trying to solve, and they get a lot of satisfaction out of that. For me, I can't say that I'm in like one camp or the other, because I'll come up with both a lot of times, just kind of floating around, and eventually in that soup of little themes and little mechanical ideas, sometimes two things will kind of click together, and then I'm like, okay, that's a thing, so I can work on that. And so what'll usually happen, this is kind of the order of things usually. I'll come up with a mechanic first, but I won't make a whole system. I'll just think of a mechanic like, say, drafting, or some kind of like a set collection or something like that. I won't go any further until I have a theme that can hook into that. And once I have both of those, I won't go any further until I can come up with secondary mechanics or emergent systems or emergent behavior that I want to pursue, that comes from that theme. So like, I'm cool with just coming up with a mechanic first, but if I go any further than that, I really want the theme to tie into it, mainly so that the theme can serve to teach the game better. And for me, I don't really necessarily go into it looking to have a story experience the way a lot of people do. Sometimes there's a narrative arc that can come from a game, but for me, I look at theme as a way to teach games and internalize the strategies, and then bring everyone to a roughly level playing field in terms of tactics and things. Because I like deep games, but I like simple games. So putting those two together usually requires theme to carry it over the edge to something that's a little bit more of like a gateway game.
Yeah. Makes sense. So I was checking out your blog site there, and up on the right corner there, it has a list of games you actually made and published.
Mhm.
And then there's about 30 games that are in development. Being that you're doing so many games at one time, does like one game detract from the rest while you're developing them, or do you
Well,
work on them equally, or?
I should probably put quotes around development because it should really just say games that are not yet fully developed. So a lot of the little ones there are not active. They're just kind of put out there in whatever state they're in, and that's just where they are. And I may pick them up again. So I never put anything away. I never completely toss out an idea or toss out a half-developed thing. I may come back to it, or I may piece it apart and do something else with it. I've done that a couple times actually. So I leave those there mainly as a record of the process of design, and kind of to show that like for every one finished game a designer has, there's dozens they have that are just scattered around that are half finished or will never be picked up again or will be picked up later. And it's never something that for me anyway. I'm working on just one thing at that time. And that's a problem with me. Like I get distracted, but but usually I'm working on like 2 or 3 games at a time, and at staggered paces. So like if one game, for example, is really in a phase where the core mechanics are done and just needs to be point tweaks and things like that, that's one stage of development for that game. Whereas another game that needs more fundamental play testing and revision and iteration, that's a completely different stage of development. So doing those two at the same time doesn't really distract from each other because they're basically different animals at that point. And so I can do both, and it doesn't feel right. And sometimes a game's done, and I'm just doing art for it, or I'm doing graphic design for it, and that's a completely different phase too. So that doesn't distract from the previous two. And that's how I set up my process. Like I have several games in the pipeline at staggered stages of development, so that I can work on them simultaneously without getting completely burned out on them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm sure. Like, I've noticed. I've talked to a couple of designers, and I know there's quite a bit of play testing and all where you could get burnt out. Yeah. Does that happen to you? Like after you get a completed product, you never want to touch the game again, or.
Yeah, there's always a phase. I mean, that's with any creative endeavor. Like, if you stick with it long enough, you're gonna have to go through that hard time where you just completely hate it and you just want to make it go away. But everyone goes through that, and if you can work past it eventually, then it's really thrilling to be able to actually kind of break that. I just went through that with a game I'm about to release next month, Monsoon Market. I went through a number of different versions of that game where I was trying to. I had a central notion of I wanted to have a market game that was that had a little bit of trading, but was not trading in the Mediterranean. I wanted the theme to be set in the Indian Ocean during the time before European contact. There's this like really cool trade route that I learned about that extended from China all the way to Africa, which was a really cool time period, generally peaceful, no wars during this time, and everyone was getting filthy rich off a trade. Like ivory from Africa and silk from China and spices from India, and all of this was like mixing up in this cool time period. And I went, oh, that's a great setting for a game. That's a great setting for a trading game. And so I went through so many different versions, just trying to capture like what could that be represented by. It could be drafting, where like boats are landing at each port and dropping off something at your port, and that could be a thing. It could just be like forced drafting, so where you have a hand of cards and you give them to everybody else. So you are giving a bunch of crap to everybody else, but they're doing the same to you. So you're stuck with having to work with a bad hand. Like I went through so many different versions of this thing. Like I just go on and on about that. But finally, this week was actually the breakthrough where I had about 6 play tests on Monday. Actually, last night. Got it solid, got it worked out, and once that basic card acquisition system was established, everything else kind of fell into place, and it became just a very approachable, elegant market trading game thing. now is the time when I would add spice to it. When I have the base set up, they can add spice and do some interesting things with it. And I'm going to be at Unpub on Saturday to help develop that.
All right. That's cool. Um, do you ever like you're making a one game and then you get an idea that comes from that game? Do you ever stop that game and start on this idea, or
Oh yeah.
is that common? Or
Yeah, I mean it happens sometimes, and honestly that's necessary. That's a necessary part of not overloading a one game with too many different ideas, and a lot of designers are able to come up with games that have very complex interlocking mechanisms that all work together to make a very intricate system that just works. I'm not that smart. So, like, I stick to one mechanic in a game usually, like just one mechanic, and that's like the one interesting thing, and I'll kind of explore that one mechanic and do different things with it. And so, for example, in Belle the Ball, my one thing was taking the I don't know if have you played Small World.
yeah.
So the way you buy the two tiles, the race and the power abilities, where you just pay, you can take the one thing for free or pay up to get something further up the line, but it costs increasingly more to get stuff that's further up the line. I basically wanted to make that whole idea of pay to pick, which is also sort of in Guillotine and also sort of in 8-Minute Empire. I liked that mechanic, and so I wanted to make a whole game just with that, like nothing else. And so that's what Belle the Ball ended up being, and the theme of that is guests who are waiting to enter a party. And so you can invite the first guest in line for free, or if you want a particular guest that you see is further up the line that you really want to get into your party because you know that they'll socialize really well with people who are already in your party, way more than the people who are right in the front of the line, you can pay up to invite them and make them skip the line. That's generally my process. I'll have that mechanic, think of a theme that works with that, and then kind of develop from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I noticed you do a lot of card games.
Yes.
I don't really know if you did any board games themselves. Do you ever plan to do one, or?
The reason I do a lot of card games right now is because the assets and facilities available to do card games are really robust right now. I work pretty much with drive-through cards only right now, because I like the quality of their cards. I like the back-end system they have for uploading files. It works very well with the way I set up my cards, and it makes running that whole store very easy because I don't have to do distribution. I don't have to do any of the other fulfillment stuff. And as soon as I have the game ready, I can have it up. I don't have to wait for a Kickstarter to fund. I don't have to do all that stuff. And it just works for me for the way I work. And because of that, that's what I focused on mainly, is just card games and seeing how much stuff I can do with just cards. And that in and of itself has been a very fun design challenge. And just like take the physicality of that little 2.5 by 3.5 piece of cardboard. How many different ways can I use this? How many can I fold it? Can I turn it over? Can I twist it? Can I layer it on top of things? Does its position on the table matter? Does its orientation compared to you versus someone else matter? All that stuff. I love exploring it, and I hope to keep on doing it because I'm still finding new things to do. Yeah, I kind of geeked out about that. Sorry.
That's all right. Where are they going here? So you are an independent. Well, I kind of figured out you're an independent designer. I was going to ask you a little bit about the distribution and all that, but you just commented on that. So
yeah. I mean, I have one game that's Belle the Ball is being published by Dice Hate Me, and that will be coming out this summer. That was Kickstarted last year. Thank you for all the backers. My next game that's being traditionally published, I don't know how much I can say about it. It is a card game, but it's got a I'll say it has a spy theme. So the theme, it's themed around espionage, but I can't say anything more than that. But yeah, so look for that. Maybe next year. And then I have a Princess Bride card game that was sold to Game Salute like a while back, but things take traditional publishing and development generally takes a long time. So I don't know when that Princess Bride card game will be coming out. But yeah, so I've been on both sides of it. I've been doing traditional publishing and I also have been doing independent stuff, and both have their strengths. To be totally honest, like I really like both. I don't really think of them as mutually exclusive.
Okay. So how long from a prototype to a finished product does it average? I know it depends on the game, but on average.
Well, I was actually talking about this to Corey Heath a little bit ago. I generally don't measure it in terms of like chronological time. So I don't like say it takes a certain number of months or a certain number of weeks or a certain number of years to get it from A to B. The thing that I find more consistent about it is the number of play hours that go into a game before it's ready. And in terms of play hours, I count everyone's play time. So like if 5 people play for an hour, that's 5 play hours. And with that rubric, I try to go for at least 100 play hours before a game is really done. And that happens faster than you think. It can happen in as short as a week. Koi Pond, for example. That's another one. Yeah, that's another one that's being published. Koi Pond, I kind of came up with it right after Unpub of last year and developed and tested that over the course of about 3 months. And that was the amount of time it took to get 100 play hours in, basically. And by that time, Drive-Thru Cards was just launching their service, and so Koi Pond was one of their launch products. And since then, there have been a couple, like 1 or 2 FAQs, like 1 or 2 questions that needed to be clarified, but otherwise, it was pretty solid all the way right from the start. Part of that is just a function of being a simple game, and so much so that the first expansion just came out, and that added quite a bit to it. Yeah, I mean, I just generally aim for 100 play hours to kind of short answer long.
Yeah, I'm actually playtesting for another company, and I can see they're going to put more than that in, and they already playtested it before I got it. Yeah, so I was just curious about that. I actually meant to ask the guy that I'm playtesting for. So speaking about this Unpub, I know a little bit about it, where it's unpublished designers get together, and they give them a chance to be seen by game producers and all that. So how involved are you? Do you just go there as a designer, or are you involved with it to some degree? Or?
I've only been there as a designer, but if you go as a designer, you're kind of also a volunteer. So when you get there, you're helping set up the tables, you're helping set up the chairs and all that stuff. But I mean, the bulk of the work is done by Daryl Louder right now, who took it over this year, and he's been doing a bang-up job on it. To be honest, it's been a great service to the design community. It's one of a couple game design focused conventions out right now, though. There's Protospiel, which I think, well, I don't want to say a city because I may get it wrong. I think Minneapolis? No, but Protospiel is big, and oh my God, there's another one in New Jersey from the same company that does Dreamation and DexCon, and the name is totally escaping me, and I'm really feel really bad, but yes. It's involved, but there's like those are the 3 big ones. The nice thing about Unpub is that they have satellite events, so like we're gonna have an Unpub Mini in Durham, North Carolina, this Saturday, which is awesome. So like 15 tables are being taken over in this game store. Each one is a designer with their own unpublished prototype that they are looking to playtest for whoever will show up, and it's a great way to like cram in those play hours I was talking about. Like get as much of that iteration and as many eyeballs as you can. Pitch and explain your game multiple times so that you hone down exactly what's important to explain when, in what order. It's a really valuable crucible to go through in order to actually get your game over the finish line and make sure that it's really ready for prime time.
Okay. Yeah. Now, how brutal are these guys with each other when
Oh,
you're critiquing somebody else's game?
well, I mean, the general public is usually much more gentle than a designer who's testing. And so you have to kind of like coax the you have to find ways to get the feedback that you need to get in order to kind of improve your game. So with the general public, it's helpful. Unpub has a standard questionnaire that they hand out to all play testers, and they fill that out and answer those questions. And over the past several years of Unpub's existence, that questionnaire has been refined down to something that's much more actionable for the designer. So things like how is the game? Did the game feel long? Did it feel predictable? Could you tell who was going to win before the end of the game? If were you confused about anything at any particular time? That's the kind of stuff that's really useful, and especially if you can find a playtester to articulate what confused them, that's amazing feedback, because then you know what to explain better or what to just completely take out of the game because it's just not worth the time it would take to explain that one little nuance. And that's generally the tactic I take. Like if something's confusing, I generally I'm more inclined to remove it rather than justify it. And that's what ends up with my tiny like minimal games that only take about 20 minutes. But that's just what I do.
Yeah, I was looking at Tenpen. I was looking at the dexterity type game. And Coupon itself, actually. I was looking at them the other day. I was thinking about them. My sister loves Penguins, and Coupon looks like an interesting game. But looking through your games, I have noticed that simplicity in all of them. Um, yeah.
That's generally the aim. I like to get people down at the table playing the game, not spending 20 minutes just learning how to play. I want to get them like in the time that it takes to teach a very large game. I want them to complete one of my games. That's kind of the little niche I'm aiming for.
Yeah, yeah, Jed would love you, my wife. Thank you for the ones where it takes a half hour to set up and figure out. But um, so being that I was running late, I skip usually what I ask in the beginning of the interviews and all that. So, what got you into the hobby?
Oh, gosh, I've been designing games for a long time. Well, I mean, early on, I was playing a lot of chess against my stepdad, and I would always lose, and I couldn't improve my skills. So instead of improving my skills, I just came up with new chess pieces that I could deploy against him. It didn't help, but that was my first taste of actual designing games. But then, much later on, I actually got my start designing role-playing games, storytelling games specifically. You usually forget. So I had Happy Birthday Robot, which was a storytelling game for very young kids. And then Do Pilgrims of the Flying Temple, which was more for like the preteen Avatar crowd, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and both of those were published partly funded by Kickstarter, but published by Evil Hat Productions. And that partnership was what really made my transition into full-time game design much more easy, because I could rely on the expertise and talent that Evil Hat brings, while also making sure that I could help out by providing funding with Kickstarter. And it generally was a fantastic partnership, and the result was two fantastic games that still have fans. And yeah, it's been great.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I had to readjust there. Um, where was I going? So, what was the first produced game that you created and got out there?
That would be Happy Birthday Robot. That would be a storytelling game for kids. It was a book, because role-playing games are books. So, and that's cool and all. I like role-playing games as an industry, and it's fantastic. It's done me wonders. But what I was really aiming for was a box. I want to put a box out there, and And it took a while to get to that point because I for all the work that I had, all the work that I put into Doe and Have a Birthday Robot, they weren't really known quantities in the board gaming side of the hobby. The two didn't have a lot of crossover at the time. They have much more now, but at the time there just wasn't really a lot of crossover. So I kind of had to start from scratch, introduce myself to people, having work. Being a graphic designer helped a lot because I could make that introduction to a publisher saying that I could offer services besides game design, because everyone wants to be the rock star, but not a lot of people want to just be the drummer. And so, like, if you can offer those services, if you can be an editor, if you can be a writer, if you can be an illustrator, publishers love you because they get just hundreds of game designers who offer them pitches, and they don't get a lot of help in the production side of things. So that was my first inroad into the board gaming industry, and from there, with those connections, I was still actively designing games in the open, and that eventually drew some attention of some publishers. I managed to introduce Belle to a couple publishers, and Dice Hate Me took interest, and they bought it. And that was the start of that. So that'll be my first box on the market.
Yeah, I was surprised. You just recently put up how many units you sold and how much you made from it. I was surprised that a designer would do that. Yeah, I know these guys don't make a lot of money in general. Designers don't, but I was shocked that you would make that public.
Yeah, I mean it's that I just want to. I didn't have the numbers to compare to when I started, and mind you, those numbers are just the print-on-demand card games. So that's not freelancing. That's not from what I get from Cafe Press or from Skillshare. I have a number of other ventures that I've got, because you kind of have to, if you're going to be a game designer, you have to have these other sources of income, because just game design on its own isn't really going to cover it necessarily. But so I just wanted, when I started doing print-on-demand games, I wanted to tell whether or not the sales that I was getting were actually considered successes. And I didn't have any numbers to compare to. No one else was sharing their numbers. So I was like, okay, well, if no one else is doing it, I'll do it. And then from now on, I can compare my own progress to my last month's progress, and then my progress over the course of a whole year. So I make that public mainly to help me out and make sure that I'm accountable to myself and keeping track of those numbers, but also as a service to anyone else who comes up and tries to make a go of it the way I have, going full on in the print-on-demand market and being able to tell whether or not their product is actually meeting target numbers that they want to see. And my numbers may not be typical. They may be really good or they may be really bad. I don't know. I have no frame of reference still, because no one else has shared their numbers yet. But I'm hoping someone does, so at least we can compare.
Yeah, maybe eventually. So this 1,000-year game contest, where did that come from?
I'm sorry?
The 1,000-year.
Oh yeah.
The 1,000-year thing, yeah.
So the 1,000-year game design challenge. Wow, gosh, I haven't been asked about that in a while. That was from, gosh, I think 4 or 5 years ago now. It's been a while.
Yeah.
That was a contest that I held. Basically, the thing I wanted to do was encourage game designers to consider what they could make as a game that would persist over multiple generations, and still be taught and still be relevant. Essentially, just trying to figure out what is it that has made the games that are presently still with us after over 1,000 years. What made them successful in terms of persisting over the eons? And oddly enough, the history of this is kind of interesting. Like, chess is not a 1,000-year game. It is only about 600 years old, about 600 years old, and in its present modern form is only about 200 years old. It's relatively young. But there are other games that are 1,000 years old, like Go is an old one, and Mancala they generally seem to be abstract games. I'm not sure what that's about. But then you also have like stuff like tag, and tag is like how long have people been playing tag? So I want to like extend this beyond the table too, just actually get like what games have people played for over 1,000 years, and what is it that makes them work. And so I offered a big money prize, and I got a bunch of submissions. The contest extended for a whole year, so I was taking submissions for a whole year. And at the end of that year, I narrowed it down to a couple finalists and awarded it to one winner, who was, turns out, James Ernest of Cheap Ass Games, who had a game that, judging between me and my wife, we thought, okay, this has the makings of a 1,000-year game just based on what we have seen so far. So that was that. I haven't done it since because that was a lot of work.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, I don't think most people would think of a game that would last 1,000 years. You know, I mean, like
Yeah.
even you were saying, chess is 600-700 years old. You know, it's not quite there.
Yeah, and that's part of why I did it. Because I just wanted to get just think about it. Like, what can you? Because right now, I mean, we have such a cult of the new. Like, we play the newest game, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll play it again like 2 or 3 more times if it's good. But then a lot of times it just collects dust on the shelf. And I wanted to just kind of like break out of that a little bit. What are the things that cause that cult of the new to happen, and what elements can we include in a game that make it less likely to be that? And part of that whole contest, part of the whole criteria was you have to go back to fundamentals. Like, you got to figure out a game that can be played regardless of language, regardless of cultural context, regardless of technological context. Like does this game need lighting to see it? Like, really fundamental stuff. Just all kinds of things like that. And you know, we looked at games that, you know, still required some technology to play, but in the end, the finalists ended up being pretty abstract. Generally, like Stone Age technology. Like, generally, they're only bits that didn't require high-grade manufacture. Usually, just pebbles that were different colors, and usually something that could be played on a simple board that would be easy to manufacture, or make just on your own out of bits and pieces. That's really what we kind of orbited around, and there's still, even with those minimal components, there were some fantastic games, and we're really pleased to see that.
It's, like you said, it's a cool concept, I think. I'm sorry. So I noticed you did this this training course on how to make card games over fall, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a one-shot thing, or is that you're going to continue to do that, or?
It's ongoing, actually. So the way it works. So this is my Skillshare class that is teaching how to design cards in tabletop games. So it's not how to design the games; it's how to actually make prototype cards, and also how the professionals put together a whole complete deck of cards as easily as possible, and with as automated methods as possible. Because the professionals don't just design one card at a time, placing the text in each one individually. They have ways to make that easier, and I wanted to make sure that I wanted to offer a way to bring those methods to everybody so that they can make their prototypes a lot easier. So they don't make the same mistake that I did early on and just start designing one card at a time individually and do a lot of work that way. So that's my Skillshare class, and the way it works is all I did was I did a series of video tutorials, and that's live to watch anytime you want. If you enroll in my Skillshare class, you have access to those videos right off the bat, and you can watch them anytime you want at your leisure. It never runs out. It's watch at your own pace and learn at your own pace. A lot of people who have started that class have no experience with InDesign, but it doesn't matter. Like the things that I teach are really focused and really specific and very step by step, so that you can go from zero knowledge of InDesign to knowing exactly how to actually set up an entire deck of prototype cards. So it's really really cool. I enjoyed doing it. I'm still like thinking of new videos to add to that course over the period of time. So like one of the things I want to do is I'm still figuring out how to do it, but I want to get a tutorial video of how to automatically insert icons into the middle of a flow of text. So like if you want to say, if you have a keyword that's like apple, and you want to insert an icon of an apple right next to the word apple, or replace the word apple with just an icon of the word apple, I'm working out a way to actually do that reliably, and then once I've got that figured out, I'm going to put up a new video on my course, and that's generally how it goes. Right now there's over 2 hours of tutorial videos on that course, so for just like 25 bucks, I feel like I'm selling things now. For just 25 bucks, 2 hours, and it will save you just hundreds of hours of time rather than doing it the hard way. Yeah, that's my pitch.
I was actually watching the one on your channel, the introductory to that series. It looked pretty interesting. I'm actually thinking about later on. Time's an issue with me. Very busy. But well, how did that come about? Was that just you wanting to share your knowledge, or did somebody approach you and ask you to do it, or?
Yeah, Skillshare approached me. A representative from the company approached me because they were just building a library of video tutorials from experts in various fields. I can't remember how they reached out to me in particular, or how they heard about me, but anyway, they expressed interest, and it turns out to have been a pretty successful class for them. Oddly enough. I want to promote it more because I've been so busy. I haven't really had a chance to really properly market it lately. But I want to get it more out there.
That's cool. So I guess that's pretty much it. Anything specific you wanted to discuss, or?
I mean, I really want to encourage designers to, in particular, designers who don't come at games from the same place as a lot of designers. Like I want to see more diversity among the game design community. I just did a post about this. What I'm starting to call sort of the Euro-American binary, where Euro games are these streamlined, elegant things with very minimal theme that's usually just kind of pasted on. And American style games are much more thematic with a lot of rolling and action and combat and stuff. I want to see more games that don't assume there's that binary, that they can be one or the other. And gradually you're seeing a lot of blending of that lately, especially games out of France, oddly enough. Like Antoine Bauza's games are fantastic in that regard. Really elegant, but still very thematic. And so I want to see more of that. I like seeing the games that come out of Japan. The games from Seiji Kanai are really cool. Love Letter and Chronicle. I really want to get Lost Legacy on the table and GD Mages. And want to see more stuff from Tate Wu out of Taiwan. But yeah, just more designers around the world getting their input and perspective onto the hobby, and just adding more spice. I want to see more. Because I just want to play these games. Like that's entirely selfish motivation. I want to play more different games and just how can we stretch this? What else can we do with this? Like I love it. I just love
it. Yeah, it's I think people are saying now is the time for that. Like they were saying 5 years ago. I haven't been in the hobby, I think, a couple of years now. But they were saying 5 years ago you'd never see a third of the games that are out now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, there has been, I've noticed that myself. Even from when I started, there's been a lot of confusion between the two genres, I guess you would call it. Yeah. So, if you were talking to somebody just getting in the hobby, what advice would you give to that person?
Just getting into the hobby as a player or as a designer?
Well, I was going to go for both, but I think we should do one at a time, not confuse people. Yeah.
Well, as a player, I mean, this is a great time to start. There's a whole bunch of really good, simple, elegant games that are still very rewarding, and a lot of them are just amazing that you can get them at Barnes and Noble, like at Target. You can get these games that used to be just relegated to the niche hobby stores. You can get them at the big box stores, and they're pretty good. Like they're pretty good introductions to the hobby. So start with the classics, like get a little Carcassonne in there. I see your meeple in the back there. Um,
Yeah.
it's one of my faves. Get a little Ticket to Ride. Get some stuff there. There's some new classics that are really good, like Forbidden Island, and some of the co-op games, which are a real wake up call to a lot of new gamers. As a game designer, I would recommend not worrying about people stealing your ideas. Like this is a thing I keep running into over and over again. Aren't you afraid someone's going to steal your idea? No, no one cares. And that sounds
Yeah.
harsh. That sounds so harsh. I feel bad saying that, but it's what it takes to actually make it. You got to share your ideas, get your game on the table, and that's the only way it's ever going to become something good. Because if you just hide it, it's never going to grow. And a game is not a game unless people are playing it. So like, just get it on the table, share it, and it'll be better. It'll be hard, but it'll be so worth it in the end. That's my advice to new designers.
Yeah, I was actually just reading that article you wrote about people stealing ideas, and I really didn't think that would be a problem in this hobby because it's so small.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. I don't know why people think there's like big money to be made. I'm gonna steal this idea and twist my mustache and I'm gonna come away with big bags of money. Like that's the hobby is too small and it takes too long to manufacture a game and it's too slow to develop. And the market is still relatively niche. That man, there's other places that a smart thief can go to actually make a buck.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, like you said, there's a lot of new players coming along. I don't think they understand. Like most game designers still have a day job. Like there's very few handful of game designers that make money to live off of in this hobby.
Yep.
Even like the guy who made Pandemic. I can't think of his name right now. I can't think, but that's a pretty successful game, and he still has a day job designing, computer software.
Yeah, that's entirely common. I mean, unless you're like Reiner Knizia, this is not your day job, and it's a fact. I mean, my day job is doing. I'm lucky that my day job is still in the game industry. And that's kind of a cool thing. I really like working in the games industry, even if I'm not doing actual game design. If I'm just doing graphics, or hiring artists, or directing branding, I love that part of the business, and I love helping out other publishers. I actually do offer a Google Help Out that offers critique and review for any graphic designers who need input, and so I do 30-minute consultations. For that, because I just love talking about graphic design in games, and that's really my passion, and I love talking about that, working it out, guiding people, and all that stuff. So yeah, that's a fun thing. But yeah, you gotta have a day job.
Well, is the graphic design something people really think about with a game? I mean, people notice the art and the components, like
Yes.
whether it's pawns or but is graphic design really something a lot of people think about?
More so now. It didn't used to be the case. More people are. I feel like even if they don't know the words for these various things and put a pin on exactly what the elements of the graphic design are, I feel like people now have a refined palette so that they can tell when something's not working and when the graphic design is not working. And now that they know what is and isn't working, they have a better sense of being able to tell when what they do is working or not, which can be tough because Ira Glass has this thing where your level of taste will always outpace your level of skill. So like you will be able to tell what you're doing is crappy way sooner than you'll be able to make whatever you make not crappy. And that's a hard period to go through because like you're just working so hard and it's just not working. But eventually it gets there. Eventually your skill will get to a point where you're like, that's all right. And you'll be able to recognize that. And I think a lot of people are in that stage right now where they recognize what's good and what's strong, and whether or not they measure that against themselves is a kind of a personal thing. But yeah, I think it's more common now. I think more people realize it and are more savvy to it than they used to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I played some of the older games. I think I had that short, but you could tell that the games in general publishing has come a long way from 10, 15 years ago. Today they worry about it being nice and pretty and all that more so than they did back then.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. It's been on for an hour. Like I said, I was running late. I meant to write the list of everything, and I'm sure I forgot some things. My mind works. I'm thinking 20 different things at a time. I gotta try and focus myself sometimes. Was there anything you wanted to discuss, or?
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but like I said, I follow you on Twitter. You are an idea machine there. Every day there's at least 6, 7 posts. Yeah, I work night, so I backtrack.
Oh, okay.
A day, and I just say, there's a few people you don't want to hire. They're always on there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, it's real informative, especially for somebody not into the game design aspect of it. Yeah, I hope my viewers got something out of it.
All right.
So
it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, same here. Like I said, I'll keep track of you. I don't have much of a choice on Twitter. I'm kidding. But thanks for doing this.
Sure. Have a good night.
You too. See you.